He followed HOA guidelines.
My brother follows federal warrants.
She's trespassing with that mud again. Those were the first words I heard when Veronica Hale marched across my lawn like she owned oxygen. She didn't even look at me. She pointed her polished nail toward my 6-year-old daughter near the fence, as if Lily breathing on community soil counted as a felony. Remove her before I remove the dog. I didn't flinch. I leaned just enough so the so-called board chair could see who she was really threatening. That microchip you're scanning, I said quietly. Its registration still reports directly to my server. Her eyes flickered, only for a breath, but a flicker was enough. Listen carefully. If you've ever defended your child against someone who thought rules mattered more than a beating heart, stay right here and hit subscribe now. My property line extends 3 feet past that fence, I continued, calm, almost bored. Your tape measure would agree. If it wasn't bought with HOA funds you still haven't declared. She froze. And I'll be honest, part of me enjoyed it. Not because I wanted a fight, but because a woman who weaponizes paperwork deserves to taste it when someone else knows how to fold it sharper. I'm Ethan Ryland, former military K-9 handler, currently county animal welfare investigator. But those titles don't matter compared to the one that's about to define this entire story. Dad. A dad who promised his little girl she would never be hurt by a dog, or because of one, again. Lily still sleeps with her stuffed retriever after that incident years ago, and that old kennel behind the HOA clubhouse. She can't walk past it without her little shoulders tightening. When I saw the enforcer in crimson look at my daughter, as if Lily were something feral to be contained, something inside me didn't just snap, it detonated. Dogs are fine, Veronica muttered, collecting herself. Children aren't allowed behind the clubhouse without prior notice. Community Rule 7. Community Rule 6, I corrected, since you merged the last 2 for your boyfriend's storage privileges. She hated when I said boyfriend. It killed her illusion of professionalism. Let me ask you something. Where are you watching from right now? Because the scene I'm about to describe feels different when you've lived through injustice, especially if you've ever been dismissed by a woman who believes power looks like a clipboard and an attitude. Lily tugged my sleeve. Daddy, can we go home? I bent down. In a minute, sweetheart. The clipboard queen wasn't done. She tilted her chin, heel tapping like a judge impatient for execution. She's where the kennel dogs are supposed to stay during inspection week. Inspection week ended Tuesday, I said. Your calendar announcement listed the date, or did your assistant forget to edit that? She tried a smile, the vicious kind, like she enjoyed imagining consequences. Children who break rules face consequences just like adults. That was the moment my heartbeat turned cold. Not fast, cold. Because consequences from people like her aren't consequences. They're punishments disguised as procedure. Is that a threat? I asked. No, the tyrant in heels whispered. It's an expectation. Lily didn't understand the words, but she felt them, her fingers wrapped tighter around mine, knuckles white, eyes glistening with that frightened shimmer a parent never forgets. I'd seen fear in combat. Nothing compares to fear in your child. When we turned to walk home, her boyfriend stood near the clubhouse gate, lean, smug, holding a chain he absolutely wanted me to notice. His boots weren't regulation anything, but his posture screamed wannabe authority. Vera must have told him he looked intimidating. He clicked the chain twice against the metal fence. Rules apply to everyone, pal. I ignored him the first time. The second time, I didn't. Touch my kid's space again, and that chain becomes county property under animal welfare seizure statutes. That landed, not because he understood the law, but because Veronica's eyes cut toward him like she realized her pet project was about to become a liability. We got home. I thought, idiotically, that this would cool down. But people like the officer of rules don't cool down. They escalate, slowly. Calculation disguised as community safety. I opened the sliding door. Lily ran to her crayons. She started drawing a dog beside a cage. She colored the cage black, too black for a 6-year-old picture. Sweetie, I said gently, what's the cage for? She shrugged, voice small. That's where they put dogs and bad kids. I swear something inside me cracked so loud I felt it in my teeth. That cage behind the clubhouse wasn't just a kennel anymore. It was a threat. And before this was over, someone would learn what a real kennel felt like. I thought yesterday's threat would fade overnight. It didn't. Veronica Hale never let anything go. Not warnings, not insults, and definitely not a 6-year-old standing 3 inches near a storage fence. When I opened my front blinds the next morning, her red SUV was already idling at the curb, engine humming, like she planned surveillance as her new hobby. She stepped out, clipboard tucked under her arm, sunglasses shaped like judgment. Lily sat at the breakfast table with cereal, humming a cartoon song, unaware that the board chair was already back to policing childhood like a crime. I walked outside. "Morning," I said before she could weaponize a greeting. "You'll be receiving a violation notice at noon," she answered, not even bothering with the fake smile. "Unsanctioned pet activity on community property." "Pet activity requires an actual pet present," I said, "unless you're classifying children as animals this month." Her jaw twitched. I had learned long ago that tyrants hate sarcasm almost as much as they hate truth. "This isn't optional," she said firmly. "I run compliance for this neighborhood." "No," I corrected calmly. "You run intimidation. Compliance is just your costume." She leaned closer, voice low. "Lily can't roam freely. You let her wander." "Wander?" I repeated. She drew with sidewalk chalk beside our own fence. "That's not wandering. That's childhood." Her boyfriend emerged from the passenger seat, still holding that chain like a badge, eyes already circling my yard. He whispered something to her, the kind of whisper that assumes the father isn't paying attention. That's when the enforcer in crimson reached into her bag and handed me a folded document, new rule proposal. "Kennel inspections begin today. The facility behind the clubhouse will remain accessible to authorized personnel only." "Authorized," I repeated, "meaning you and him." "Meaning members of the board," she corrected sharply, but her fingers pointed ever so subtly toward him. Lily peeked through the screen door. "Daddy, are we going to be late?" The second I turned, Veronica bent slightly, aligning eyes at Lily's level like a predator, lowering to pounce. "Sweetheart," she said sweetly but cold underneath, "you should always tell your daddy where you're going on community property. It keeps you safe." And that's when my stomach twisted. "Inside," I told Lily quietly. "Finish your breakfast." Veronica straightened. "You two should learn boundaries." I didn't answer. Sometimes silence is sharper than words. When they finally left, I felt something I haven't felt since deployment, anticipation layered with dread. Anyone who's served knows exactly what I mean, the pre-threat feeling when something hasn't happened yet, but already has. I drove Lily to school myself, waited until she was inside the building, then circled the neighborhood once. I wasn't paranoid, I was observant. Observation is what kept my K-9 unit alive overseas. When I returned home, a new sign hung on the clubhouse fence. Authorized animal storage. Only. It wasn't legally binding, but it didn't need to be. HOA tyranny rarely bothers with law. It prefers suggestion disguised as enforcement. That afternoon, a neighbor, Mrs. Ward, knocked, holding grocery bags. Usually she likes to chat about roses. Today she hesitated, voice lower. "Be careful," she murmured. "They think you're challenging authority." "They?" I asked. She looked over her shoulder, scanning the quiet cul-de-sac. Veronica and her friend. Friend, that word again. Not boyfriend, not partner. As if everyone was avoiding calling him what he was. An unauthorized extension of her power. "What do they want?" I asked. She exhaled shakily. "Control, for control's sake." The clipboard queen drove through again that evening. Slow, windows down, sunglasses off, this time like she wanted her eyes to make a point. My daughter was coloring on the porch when the SUV crawled by. Lily froze. She watched Veronica the way children watch a thundercloud. Not dramatic, just cautious, instinctively threatened. "Daddy?" she whispered, moving closer to me. "Why does she look at me like that?" I didn't answer immediately. I couldn't. Sometimes the truth is so vile, you have to reshape it into something gentler so a child can sleep that night. "Some people don't understand kindness," I finally said. We went inside. I locked the sliding door, not because of animals, but because of people. Later that night, I checked the backyard cameras. One angle caught Veronica's boyfriend walking near the fence around sunset, chain in hand, stopping precisely where Lily sat drawing yesterday. He didn't touch anything, but presence is its own threat. Fear doesn't always roar. Sometimes it taps slowly like metal links against steel mesh. I stared at the screen until the motion alert timed out. Then something inside me moved, quiet at first, like instinct remembering who it used to be. Because nobody touches my daughter's space. Not with words, not with rules, and definitely not with chains. The next morning, Lily didn't want to go to school. She clung to my shirt, whispering that the lady in the red jacket would say something scary again. Fear should never be a 6-year-old's morning routine. But Veronica Hale had already planted herself into my daughter's imagination like a permanent storm signal. As I walked Lily inside the building, the school resource officer gave me a small nod, noticing her silence. I didn't explain. How do you explain that the officer of rules from a homeowners association now acted like she owned childhood itself? When I got back home, something felt off. My neighbor, Daniel Reyes, was standing near his mailbox, arms crossed, eyes following the clubhouse pathway. Daniel wasn't just any neighbor. He handled maintenance for half the properties on the street. And he'd attended more board meetings than anyone I knew. But today he kept looking away when our eyes met. "You all right?" I asked. He swallowed, hesitating. "They're pushing new rules again." "They?" "The clipboard queen," he said under his breath. "And the guy she brings around." His hesitation wasn't random. It was fear mixed with loyalty, mixed with uncertainty. Exactly the kind of internal conflict a witness doesn't know how to wear publicly. "Daniel," I said carefully, "something's happening behind the scenes, isn't it?" He opened his mouth, closed it, then rubbed his forehead like the words physically burned to speak. "Some of us tried voting against the new safety proposals at the last meeting," he finally admitted. "But she," he nodded toward the clubhouse, "doesn't exactly respect no." "What proposals?" He looked around, lowered his voice. "Requests to restrict children from certain areas without board supervision." My stomach turned. "That's not rulemaking, that's control." Daniel stepped back, almost instinctively, the way someone withdraws from heat they didn't mean to touch. "I shouldn't be talking about this. Forget I said anything." I watched him walk away, shoulders tight, like he was carrying something he was terrified to drop, but even more terrified to hold. That's when I knew. He wasn't just a neighbor. He was the conflicted witness, caught between what he knew and who he feared. Later that afternoon, as I checked the side gate, the tyrant in heels approached again. She didn't speak right away, just watched me, her boyfriend standing behind her like a shadow with chains. "You've been violating safety expectations," she finally announced. "My daughter plays on her own porch," I replied. "Children require supervision at all times on communal surfaces," she recited, like her voice was a recorded message. "Porches aren't communal," I reminded her. "They're visible to the street," she countered. "And so are you," I said. "Yet nobody's writing violations about intimidation." Her expression hardened. "You might think you have control, but trust me, this neighborhood thrives on order, and I execute it." Execute, a word chosen intentionally, a word meant to intimidate. "Funny thing about control," I said, "it usually snaps the moment someone stronger pulls back." Her boyfriend stepped forward, metal links rustling in his grip like a warning. I stayed exactly where I was, not moving, not flinching. Veronica smirked slightly. "Careful with your tone. Kids imitate behavior." "Mine won't imitate fear," I told her quietly. "They learn courage." They finally walked away, but not before he shot one last look toward the porch, like he was memorizing the layout. That evening, Daniel texted me a single message. "Don't let Lily out of sight after sunset." No explanation, no context. Just a clear warning from someone who had clearly seen too much. Right after dusk, Lily was brushing her hair before bed when motion alert icons flashed across my phone. Backyard camera. I tapped the feed. Veronica's boyfriend was standing near our gate again, not touching it, just watching, holding that chain like a leash without a dog. I stepped onto the porch. "You need something?" He didn't answer. He just stared, jaw slowly grinding like a threat rehearsing itself. Veronica wasn't with him this time, and somehow, that made it worse. "Don't let this get messy," he finally muttered. "It already is," I replied. He walked off slowly, chain rattling against the concrete like a countdown I couldn't yet read. When Lily finally fell asleep, I sat in the living room staring at the dark windows. Something shifted inside me again, Not rage, not fear, something deeper. The same instinct I relied on overseas when I worked alongside K-9 teams searching compounds. Because you don't threaten a veteran's child and expect silence. You don't stalk a father and expect surrender. And you don't try to cage a little girl without learning exactly what real containment feels like. I wasn't going to wait for them to move first. I'd already started preparing the moment they crossed the line near her sidewalk chalk. The following morning, the board chair sent an email blast titled Community Child Safety Enforcement. I read every line 3 times. Every sentence referenced unsupervised minors, dangerous behavior, and animal control measures around common spaces. And attached, of course, was an unsigned incident notice claiming Lily had endangered neighborhood pets by attempting contact without authorization. Contact? She was drawing butterflies with chalk. I was still reading when Veronica Hale appeared at my front walk, heels striking the pavement like she was performing dominance. The clipboard queen carried a stack of printed warnings, each one bright red, like she wanted the ink to bleed fear directly into the page. "You received the announcement?" she asked, voice emptied of empathy. "I received the threat," I answered. "It's not a threat, it's a safety guideline." She slid a sheet toward me. "Children must remain inside fenced areas or accompanied by approved guardians." Approved by whom? By the officer of rules, naturally. She meant herself. She didn't even blink saying it. I folded the paper in half. "You're escalating." She smiled. "No, you are." The tyrant in heels turned and left without another word, and her boyfriend trailed behind her, that same chain in his hand, like he was waiting for an excuse to use it. I watched them walk toward the clubhouse, and that's when I knew. She wasn't done tightening control. This wasn't about rules. This was about ownership. That afternoon, Lily begged to stay close to me while I worked on the porch. Normally, she'd run into the yard chasing butterflies, but not now. Fear has a way of shrinking childhood. Around 3 p.m., a new notice appeared taped to our gate. I peeled it off and felt my jaw lock instantly. Mandatory pet security review. Children interacting with neighborhood dogs must demonstrate appropriate safety discipline. Discipline. Someone was purposely twisting meaning. I scanned the street. Several neighbors glanced away quickly, pretending they didn't see anything. But one set of eyes held my attention. Daniel's. He stood by his truck, pretending to check his tools, but his expression said something different. Something darker. "Who wrote this?" I called across. He didn't move toward me. He just answered with a flat voice. "Ask Veronica." "What does it actually mean?" "You know what it means," he said quietly. "He's been bragging she lets him set rules now." The enforcer in crimson, letting her boyfriend establish rules? That was beyond policy abuse. It was reckless authority handed to someone with zero reason to have it. Not legally, not ethically, not safely. Daniel looked around before stepping closer. "Just keep Lily close tonight." He hesitated again, that same internal tug of war written across his shoulders. "He's angry about something. They fought after yesterday." "They?" He nodded. "And he kept saying he'd teach the kid respect." A coldness sliced straight through me. "Daniel," I said, "did you actually hear him?" "I heard enough." He cut himself off, lowering his voice. "I shouldn't be telling you this, but someone has to." He turned away fast, like the words risked burning him. By evening, I noticed a new metal padlock installed on the clubhouse side gate. I recognized it instantly. That wasn't HOA property. That was a kennel lock, used specifically for animal containment. I zoomed in on the security feed, magnifying every pixel. My pulse kicked into a higher gear the moment I spotted it. In the shadow near the fence, that chain again, rotating around someone's wrist. I stepped outside. "Don't even think about coming onto my property." He smirked from the shadows. "Dogs need boundaries." "My daughter is not a dog," he shrugged. "Depends on who you ask." That sentence detonated something in me I hadn't felt since deployment, an instinct older than logic, older than fear, and I swear, if Lily hadn't been inside, I would have walked straight through that gate. Instead, I walked back toward my phone and opened a contact I never thought I'd call for neighborhood drama. My brother, Federal K-9, tactical unit, and the only man I knew who treated containment like a science. But I didn't call yet. not fully. I just hovered over his name, thumb resting above the dial icon, heart beating through my ribs like a door being pounded from the inside. Because something inside me already understood. Once I involved him, this wouldn't be a warning anymore. This would be a response, a trained one. As night settled, I checked every lock in the house twice, then a third time. And as I looked out the kitchen window, I saw movement again. Only this time, it wasn't at the gate. It was near the kennel lock. He wasn't watching anymore. He was preparing. And whatever he thought he was preparing to do, he just made me prepare faster. By morning, the situation on Oak Summit felt heavier, like the entire neighborhood had shifted a few degrees into something colder. I walked Lily to school myself, scanning every lawn, every driveway camera, every garage door half open. And even though the sun was bright, it felt like every shadow belonged to him. When I returned, another notice fluttered on my porch railing, stamped with the board seal, dripping with false authority. I tore it open, already feeling my pulse pushing against my throat. Incident escalation review scheduled. Parent must attend. Incident escalation review. I stepped inside, sat at the table, and read every line twice. Veronica Hale had written this one herself, her signature at the bottom, in red. The clipboard queen really believed she could turn kidnapping threats into administrative meetings. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Is this Ethan?" a voice asked. "Animal Welfare Compliance Division." My stomach dropped. "Yes. We received a report from your community regarding a minor's behavior around animals. Claims include aggression, provoking behavior, and physical threat to pets." I closed my eyes tight. "That's fabricated." "Well, unfortunately, sir, any report requires assessment. We're placing your residence on the temporary observation status." I pictured the enforcer in crimson smiling somewhere, thinking she'd just locked another chain. After the call, I stepped onto the porch and saw her, the tyrant in heels, standing with her boyfriend near the clubhouse path. They were pretending to look at a cracked tile, but their eyes kept flicking toward my house. I knew a setup when I saw one. I went back inside and fired up my laptop. I started cross-referencing HOA animal control policy, county regulations, and property easement rights. My training from animal welfare investigations sharpened every line. And buried inside an older amendment draft, I noticed something, a clause referencing kennel containment guidelines. But here's the thing. That clause wasn't legal for residential areas unless approved by county animal safety regulations. And Oak Summit wasn't approved. My heart kicked once, hard. They weren't authorized to own or install kennel-grade locking mechanisms, which meant the padlock I saw last night wasn't just abusive, it was illegal, under federal animal welfare compliance law. And suddenly, my profession wasn't just background, it was ammunition. I copied screenshots, statutes, date codes, and placed them into a report format I knew like muscle memory. Just as I saved the file, the front camera pinged, movement detected. I opened the feed and froze. Veronica Hale stood at the gate, papers in her hand like she expected me to walk out and surrender. When I didn't, she rang the bell, again and again. Finally, I opened the door. "We need to discuss the incident," the officer of rules said, forcing professional tone. "You mean the false report?" "It wasn't false. Children who don't respect boundaries become liabilities to the community. I'm obligated, I stepped closer, to keep her safe. To keep the community safe, she corrected sharply. The community, not children. She recoiled, subtle, but there. Her father is responsible for her safety, she said, raising her chin. Not the neighborhood. My daughter is safe. Her eyes moved past me, scanning the yard. Not from everything. That sentence slithered somewhere lower than fear, somewhere closer to rage. "What exactly are you implying?" I asked. "I'm implying nothing," she said. "But you should know, certain residents believe stronger measures must be taken, including containment." Containment. This wasn't just threat escalation, this was narrative construction. She wanted the community to believe Lily needed to be contained, like an animal, and then she delivered the real reveal. "Next week's meeting will determine if your property remains compliant," she said, sliding a folded notice toward me. "If not, sanctions begin immediately." Sanctions? Against my property? I scanned the page and nearly laughed. Failure to restrain minors' behavior. not child behavior, minor, legal language, intentional, designed for liability framing, which meant they weren't just bullying, they were preparing a legal angle. Veronica Hale turned as if everything was already decided, and her boyfriend tightened his grip on the chain like he was rehearsing for something. Something physical, something planned. I closed the door and dialed my brother, but stopped before hitting call again. Instead, I recorded a voice memo, time-stamped, legally admissible. Veronica Hale has introduced unauthorized kennel language and implied containment for a minor, I said into the mic. Potentially premeditated intent. Documented. My hands shook afterward, not from fear but from recognition. I had seen this kind of escalation before, overseas, in places where people tried to control others through intimidation and confinement. And there was one thing I learned in every one of those places. The moment they start preparing containment, you prepare extraction. By the next afternoon, I noticed something disturbing. Neighborhood kids who normally ran around laughing suddenly avoided our sidewalk. Their parents pulled them closer whenever Lily came outside, like she was contagious with danger. False narratives spread faster than truth, and the clipboard queen knew exactly how to weaponize that. I walked Lily to the mailbox, and 3 neighbors stepped aside, whispering something about animal safety concerns. The enforcer in crimson was already poisoning every conversation, every glance, every concern about our family. Not because she believed the lie, but because she needed others to. When we returned home, another bright red notice hung on the gate. I didn't touch it. I went straight inside, grabbed gloves, and removed it carefully, keeping the adhesive intact. My training reminded me, evidence can reveal fingerprints and timing. The paper read, mandatory containment review, not recommendation, not evaluation, mandatory containment, over and over again, like she was conditioning us. The officer of rules had signed at the bottom, again in red ink. But I noticed something new, a second signature line labeled Compliance Enforcer. Whoever planned this wanted authority shared, delegated, handed to someone unqualified, likely him. I scanned the houses across the street, searching for Daniel. He usually worked near the clubhouse around this time, but today he wasn't anywhere, until I saw movement near the loading side of the HOA maintenance shed. His posture was stiff, shoulders rounded like he was carrying invisible bricks. I approached slowly, not wanting to spook him. "Daniel," I said gently, "did something happen?" He didn't turn. "You shouldn't talk to me right now." "Why not?" "Because she's already watching who you talk to." "She?" He finally turned. "Veronica. She asked about you. She asked about Lily. She asked if I'd noticed signs of aggression last week." "Aggression? A 6-year-old girl drawing chalk butterflies?" I lowered my voice. "Daniel, you don't believe any of this, right?" He swallowed hard. "It doesn't matter what I believe." "Yes, it does." His jaw twitched. "I heard her boyfriend last night. He said something about training discipline, and Veronica laughed. Not a nervous laugh, a proud one." My stomach clenched. Training discipline. Daniel took a breath that sounded like regret. "I shouldn't have told you." "You just protected a child," I said. "That matters." He shook his head. "I'm not protecting anybody. I'm just tired of being scared." His body language, closed arms, shifting feet, showed deeper conflict. He wasn't just afraid of her. He was afraid of losing his job, his standing, maybe more. But buried beneath that fear was guilt, and guilt meant knowledge. Before I could ask anything else, his phone vibrated, and he stepped away immediately, answering with forced neutrality. "Yes, Veronica. Yes, I'm at the shed. No, he's not here." He met my eyes only once during that call, and inside that glance I saw a silent apology. I got back home and stared at the containment notice again. Something about the wording bothered me. Secure area, hold until parent arrival, temporary isolation if necessary. Temporary isolation? That was federal terminology, not HOA language. Someone copied legal text from animal containment regulations. Someone with access to enforcement manuals, which meant Veronica Hale didn't just invent this. She researched it, every instruction, every phrase, every procedural step. That's when I saw the timestamp on the original email from Animal Welfare, 8:47 a.m. The first notice was left at 8:53 a.m., 6 minutes apart. which meant she filed her false report before she even warned me. Premeditated, coordinated, legitimately malicious. I opened my recording folder, added new voice evidence, time-stamped everything, cross-referenced dates, and logged all verbal threats. My training wasn't just an occupation, it became a defensive strategy. Just before sunset, the tyrant in heels marched to the clubhouse again, boyfriend trailing her like a shadow, with that chain swinging from his fist. I watched from behind my screen door, letting her think I wasn't paying attention, and then he looked right at Lily through our window. Not at me, not at the house, at her. And he smiled. That was the moment fear ended. I grabbed my phone and hit call instead of hovering. My brother answered on the second ring. "You okay?" "No," I said, voice low. "They're preparing containment," and he just targeted Lily visually. I heard movement on his end. Sharp, fast, tactical. "Send video. I need timestamps." "I have everything documented." "Good," he said, "because once I'm involved, this becomes federal." The line went quiet for a beat. Then his voice returned deeper. "Be ready, Ethan. Containment works both ways." I closed the blinds, locked every door, and whispered to myself what my training already knew. Once predators choose a target, professionals choose a plan. The next morning, I woke to the sound of footsteps on gravel outside my bedroom window, a slow, dragging sound that didn't belong to delivery drivers or early joggers. I pulled the curtain just enough to see a figure lingering near the side gate, the chain. Again. He was circling my fence like a predator memorizing every escape point. I grabbed my phone, recorded 5 full seconds, then stepped away before he sensed movement. Lily was still asleep. I thanked God she didn't see him. Children shouldn't wake up thinking someone wants to lock them away. Not ever. I made coffee, sat at the kitchen island, and reviewed the containment language again. Veronica Hale hadn't written those phrases accidentally. The clipboard queen had deliberately woven enforcement terminology straight from kennel regulations, designed for dangerous animals. But something had shifted in the last 24 hours. People were starting to look nervous around her. Not confident. Nervous. By mid-morning, Daniel appeared at the edge of my driveway, hands shoved in his pockets like he was trying to hide inside them. His eyes wouldn't meet mine at first. He just stared at the asphalt like he was searching for courage inside its cracks. "You got a minute?" he finally asked. I nodded and led him toward the side of the house, away from visible cameras, not because I wanted secrecy, but because Daniel looked like a man who needed shelter. He took a long breath. "I shouldn't be here." "You are," I said softly. "That counts." "She's planning something," he began, voice trembling just enough to betray fear. "Last night, I overheard her boyfriend talking on the phone. He said, 'She's just a kid. How long could she stay inside?' He laughed afterward, but she didn't tell him to stop. She didn't even look upset. My stomach clenched hard. "Inside? Where?" Daniel's throat tightened. "The kennel, at the clubhouse. They moved another cage panel in yesterday. After you shut your blinds." Every word echoed inside my ribs like impact force. "Tell me everything." He finally met my eyes, and in that second, every internal war he'd been fighting showed on his face. "They argued after I left yesterday. He said she promised him authority. He wants control. She wants power. They both think Lily is the key. The tyrant in heels was never after policy. She was after leverage." Daniel rubbed his hands together, fingers shaking. "They want a confrontation at the next board meeting. Not a discussion, a confrontation. Veronica said she needs witnesses to confirm Lily's dangerous interaction with animals. He said he'd make sure he had proof. But there's no proof unless he creates it. Kidnap, capture, stage, blame. That was their plan. I forced my breathing to slow. "Daniel, why are you telling me this?" He swallowed. "Because you're the only one who ever treated me like a person instead of property. And because if something happens to that little girl, I'll never forgive myself." This was the moment Part 7 always requires, the conflicted witness stepping out of fear and into truth. "What are they planning today?" I asked. His shoulders sagged. "A containment test. They talked about checking lock durability and timing." Timing. No one tests timing unless they expect resistance. He looked over his shoulder. "They told me to be at the clubhouse at 4. If I'm not there, Veronica will know I talked. So show up, I told him. Just don't play along. His voice cracked. She'll fire me. I shook my head slowly. No, she'll try. But firing you after this, that becomes retaliation during an active federal report, and she doesn't want the wrong agency watching her. Federal? Daniel whispered. My brother, I said quietly. K-9 tactical. He's not just family, he's jurisdiction. Something flickered in Daniel's expression, hope mixed with realization. Does she know who you really are? No, I answered, and she never will, not until it's too late for her. He nodded once, steadier now. What do you need from me? Everything about his posture shifted, from terrified employee to reluctant ally. Just one thing, I replied. Eyes on the kennel when they start testing. Call me the second something moves. He nodded again, stepped back, and wiped his palms on his jeans. Ethan, be ready. I already am. He turned and walked away, trying to appear casual, but his shoulders told the real story. This wasn't just HOA conflict anymore. This was premeditation. I stepped inside, locked the door, and finally sent my brother every piece of evidence. The chain videos, the notices, the timestamps, the recordings. Within seconds, his message came back. Stay home. Don't confront. We're coming. That was the moment fear turned into strategy. Because once a federal K-9 unit is en route, the real kennel is waiting. Just not for my daughter. After Daniel left, I didn't sit. I paced. Every instinct from deployment screamed preparation. Not panic, not retaliation. Preparation. I triple-checked windows, tested door sensors, activated the rear flood cameras, and reviewed every second of footage I'd recorded since this started. The clipboard queen thought she was controlling the narrative. She had no idea she'd walk straight into federal jurisdiction. Around noon, Lily asked if she could chalk butterflies again. My heart twisted painfully at the request. Innocence shouldn't require permission. But I forced myself to smile. On the back patio, sweetheart, where Daddy can see you. She ran out giggling, her joy echoing across bricks Veronica Hale wished she owned. I stood behind her, watching the yard like it was a combat perimeter. Every leaf rustle, every passing car, every camera ping. At 12:42 p.m., the doorbell rang. I checked the feed first. The enforcer in crimson stood with arms crossed, boyfriend leering behind her like a bouncer. I didn't open the door. Instead, I cracked the window just enough to speak. We need another discussion, she said sharply. No, I answered. You need to stop. That tone won't help you, the officer of rules snapped. And your forged language won't help you, I responded, letting the words land like weight. Her entire jawline stiffened. We're conducting kennel safety review this afternoon. I expect your cooperation. Cooperation? I repeated. For illegal installation of containment apparatus on residential grounds? Her eyes widened briefly, surprised she couldn't hide fast enough. Those locks were approved under emergency animal regulations. No, they weren't, I said. Code 17.3 prohibits kennel structures without county certification, and Oak Summit never filed. She stared at me like she suddenly realized I wasn't just a dad who got unlucky. I was a professional who could dismantle her entire operation using the same rulebook she weaponized. We'll see about that, she hissed. You already are, I answered. She pivoted and marched away, boyfriend trailing behind her like a dog desperate for praise. I closed the window, pulse steady, not elevated, strategy replacing fear. I pulled up my communications log and added every detail, precise timestamps, exact phrases, tone changes, everything admissible, everything documented. At 2:10 p.m., my brother sent a photo, tactical vehicle staging, K-9 harness laid out, gear being checked. Beneath the image, he wrote one sentence. Federal clock has started. Don't interrupt it. Exactly what I needed. At 3:48 p.m., I positioned myself behind the patio door while Lily colored butterflies across concrete. That little chalk stick became a symbol she refused to let them steal. Childhood shouldn't have villains. But sometimes it does. Through the glass, I saw Daniel walking toward the clubhouse, shoulders tense, head low, phone in his hand like lifeline. I tracked him through camera feed until he disappeared inside. 3 minutes later, my phone vibrated. 4 short buzzes. Our agreed signal, testing starting, chain, padlocks, their timing. Don't come here. They were timing the locks. I moved Lily inside gently, telling her we'd take a break. She didn't argue. She trusted me, a responsibility heavier than any combat gear I'd ever worn. As soon as she was safe, my phone lit again. He said tonight. Not meeting day. Tonight. Looking for moment alone. Don't let her out of sight. My stomach twisted, but my mind sharpened. Tonight, sooner than expected. They wanted to avoid public confrontation. They wanted control without witnesses. I typed one word and sent it to my brother. Tonight. His reply came instantly. Copy. Keep her inside. Team mobilizing. Outside, I watched shadows move near the clubhouse like restless storms. The tyrant in heels paced along the walkway, talking on her phone, gesturing furiously. Something wasn't going according to her plan. Maybe Daniel's hesitation. Maybe her boyfriend's impatience. Maybe the federal timing she didn't know she triggered. At 5:12 p.m., Daniel texted again. Veronica upset. He's pushing faster. She's scared to go alone. Scared, not remorseful. Scared of consequences. Good. I positioned interior cameras toward all entry points, pulled Lily close for dinner, read her favorite story twice. Every normal task became tactical timing. Every minute closer to nightfall mattered. Around 7:34 p.m., lights along the clubhouse flickered. Emergency bulbs glowed brighter than usual. That wasn't HOA lighting. It was backup power, preparing for off-hour access. They weren't waiting until tomorrow. They were preparing now. I whispered to myself, "You started this by treating my daughter like an animal." Then, calmer. Now, watch what happens when real handlers arrive. My phone pinged again. My brother. 10 minutes out. Keep phone clear, secure. We handle entry. I held Lily tighter, heart not racing, but ready. Because the moment federal boots hit this street, Veronica Hale would finally learn what a kennel really was. Nightfall hit our street like a slow-closing door. Every porch light flickered on, illuminating driveways, hedges, and shadows that stretched longer than they should have. I moved through the house quietly, locking windows, securing latches, adjusting interior sensors, every step guided by training. Most homeowners never need, but some fathers are forced to use. Lily fell asleep on the couch, clutching her little plush dog like it could shield her from nightmares that should never touch a child. I tucked a blanket around her, kissed her forehead gently, and whispered a promise she couldn't hear. No one touches you tonight. At 8:02 p.m., a faint clinking sound pinged the rear camera. I checked the feed. Nothing. Visible, but sound alone could be enough. Metal. Chain. My pulse didn't spike. It narrowed. Focus is sharper than fear. I turned on the side monitor, switching angles until finally, there, movement near the clubhouse fence. A shape crouching low, lifting something metallic. The chain reflected briefly under the street lamp before disappearing into shadow. He was testing the distance between our property and the kennel entrance, marking proximity, measuring timing. Daniel's warning echoed like a tactical alert. I sent a quick message to my brother, movement near clubhouse fencing, testing proximity. The reply came 2 seconds later. Position maintained. We're close. I closed the message, kept one eye on the live feed, and listened to the house breathing, the creak of settling wood, the hum of refrigerator coils, the rustle of wind against siding, small sounds that reveal big threats if you listen correctly. A minute later, the doorbell rang. One time, firm, like someone was practicing authority, but didn't want neighbors peeking out. I didn't move. The enforcer in crimson stood illuminated by the porch light, posture stiff, chin lifted. The clipboard queen held a single sheet of paper like it was a warrant, but her eyes betrayed something new, fear. She scanned the street over her shoulder, not with confidence, but paranoia. When I didn't answer, she leaned closer to the door camera. "We need to conduct a safety check," she called out, voice controlling but shaky beneath its surface. I pressed the intercom. "No, the rules require—" "The law doesn't," I said. Her nostrils flared. "If you refuse, we'll escalate containment. You don't threaten a federal K-9 handler with containment. You just don't." "You already escalated," I said. "And you did it illegally." Her boyfriend stepped into frame, chain dangling at his side like an invitation. Small movements reveal violence faster than shouting ever does. "This won't go your way," the officer of rules muttered. "No," I said quietly. "It won't go yours." She shifted uncomfortably. Her voice dropped. "Just open the door and let's resolve this." "Resolution ends with federal arrival," I answered. That landed, her face tightened, not understanding what federal meant, but knowing it ended her control. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Daniel. I opened the message discreetly. "They're moving early. He wants her out tonight." Veronica scared, not stopping him. My stomach hardened, but my voice stayed calm. "You need to leave," I told her through the intercom. "Now." "We're within our rights," she argued, but the tremble in her tone betrayed the lie. I could see her calculating. Fear of legal consequences versus whatever twisted promise her boyfriend had convinced her of. She started to step back when a low rumble vibrated the pavement. Tires. Multiple. She whipped her head toward the intersection, just as dark. Unmarked SUVs rolled in, headlights off, moving with surgical precision. She recognized authority, just not the level of it. My phone flashed. My brother. "Do not engage. Stand by." I stepped away from the window, checked Lily again, still asleep, breathing slow, safe. The sound of vehicle doors closing echoed down the street like quiet thunder. Then K-9 pause, controlled, disciplined, ready. Outside, Veronica Hale's voice quivered against night air. You can't be serious? This is a misunderstanding." Her boyfriend tried stepping forward, but immediately froze at a command none of us heard, only witnessed. An animal conditioned by training, older and stronger than his bravado. The tyrant in heels back toward the street, arms trembling, clipboard lowering like surrender. And in that moment, I understood something critical. She wasn't a mastermind. She was a puppet who finally realized someone had cut the strings. Federal agents surrounded the clubhouse. Flashlights sliced the darkness. Then, one sentence cut through the air. "Secure the kennel." Everything stopped, even Veronica's breath. That was the moment she finally understood the truth. Containment wasn't coming for Lily. It was coming for her. Floodlights washed the clubhouse lawn in stark white, revealing every locked panel, every chain, every kennel bar the clipboard queen had pretended was policy. Lily slept upstairs, unaware of the world reordering itself beneath her window. I stayed at the base of the staircase, listening to every sound outside, ready for anything that dared slip past federal perimeter. Through the living room blinds, I watched the board chair pacing near the mailbox, phone shaking in her hand, as she tried dialing someone, anyone who could protect her from what she'd engineered. Not a person answered, because manipulation rarely calls you back once the consequences arrive. Her boyfriend tried stepping forward again, chain still looped around his wrist, but the federal K-9 nearest him gave a single bark, short, sharp, trained. He froze instantly. Amazing what real authority looks like. A tactical agent approached our porch and spoke through the door without knocking. "Mr. Ryland, maintain interior position. Do not approach entry." "Copy," I answered, voice steady. At the clubhouse, agents inspected the locking mechanism, photographing every hinge, every latch, every point of installation. They spoke in low, concise language, terms only operators use. Veronica Hale kept whisper shouting, "This is a misunderstanding!" But her voice trembled with defeat, not innocence. I stepped toward the window as Daniel emerged from behind the maintenance shed, escorted by another agent. His shoulders shook, not fear this time, but relief. The conflicted ally had finally stepped into the right side of a very dangerous line. "One more thing," Daniel said to an agent, pointing toward the clubhouse basement door. "He put another cage down there earlier. Bigger one. Basement. Bigger?" My pulse tightened, memories of deployment flooding back, places where confinement was a tactic used to break spirit, not regulate safety. The enforcer in crimson spun toward Daniel, eyes wide, betrayal hitting her harder than federal flashlights. "You told them? You're finished here." "No," he answered softly. "You are." Agents guided him away to give a statement, and for the first time, Daniel walked with a straight spine, no longer carrying silent fear like a weight. Across the lawn, The tyrant in heels attempted her final stand. "I am the HOA president," she insisted, voice cracking. "You can't just invade a private community." "That's exactly what a federal warrant does," an agent replied calmly. She tried to speak, but words crumbled beneath consequences she never imagined would reach her. When you weaponize authority, you forget who actually owns it. My brother stepped into view, gear strapped, K-9 at heel. Just seeing him exhaled 10 years of tension I'd stored behind bones and duty. He crossed toward my door, and the moment he entered, I locked eyes with him. Silent communication older than language, forged through combat and childhood. "She okay?" he asked quietly. "She's sleeping." "Good. She won't remember any of this." Outside, agents cut the padlock, the exact kennel lock that had been used on animals across county shelters. As the metal snapped, Veronica Hale flinched like the sound pierced through her ribs. "That's county property," my brother said loudly enough for every neighbor watching through blinds. "Unauthorized possession and installation create criminal liability." Her boyfriend muttered, "It's just a kennel." "No," Marcus corrected, "that's unlawful confinement infrastructure. Very different thing." Agents opened the kennel fully, revealing an interior big enough for a child, cleaned recently, too recently. That sight almost threw me forward, but my brother placed a firm hand against my chest. "We handle this. You protect Lily." He stepped away, signaling officers toward the basement access. The moment they lifted the door, I saw the truth. Metal bars, larger cage, prepared, prepped. Not for dogs, but measured for height. Daniel's words repeated in my head. "Bigger one." A mother across the street gasped loudly enough to echo. Suddenly neighbors stepped onto porches, frozen in place, watching the lie unravel in unforgiving light. The officer of rules didn't have rules anymore, only consequences. One agent turned toward the boyfriend. "Sir, you are being detained." "For what?" he barked. "For what you intended," the agent replied. Veronica Hale crumpled, not like a villain caught, but like someone who finally understood the story she wrote ended with her name printed under felonies she never believed could apply to her. Because power always seems permanent when you're misusing it, until someone with actual authority arrives. My brother stepped back onto the porch. "Ethan, this won't return to normal. Not for them." "No," I said quietly. "But Lily gets her normal back. That's all I ever wanted." He put a hand on my shoulder. "Keep her close. We're not done yet." Outside, agents closed the kennel door, not to lock someone inside, but to seal evidence. And in that moment, the whole neighborhood saw exactly who the real animal handlers were. By the next morning, Oak Summit felt like it was holding its breath. Patrol vehicles still lined the entrance, federal seals visible even through fogged windshields. Neighbors walked slower, heads turning toward the clubhouse every few minutes, as if waiting for the next revelation to fall out of that basement like truth finally cracking open. But there was still one step the federal team insisted must happen publicly: the community meeting. The board chair thought she was walking into a disciplinary ambush for my family. She didn't know the room had already shifted jurisdiction hours earlier. I carried Lily into the community center hallway while she clutched her little plush dog, unaware of the entire neighborhood collapsing behind her like a broken lie. My brother walked beside us in plain clothes, blending, but the presence beneath his jacket was unmistakable, authority in civilian fabric. Inside, residents packed every row. Whispers spread fast: basement cages, padlocks, federal agents, criminal investigation. The clipboard queen marched toward the podium, heels clicking like she still believed she owned the floor beneath them. The tyrant in heels adjusted her blazer, chin lifted as if cameras were rolling only for her victory speech. When she tapped the microphone, her voice trembled just enough to betray panic under polished words. "We are here to address severe safety violations, specifically involving Mr. Ryland's child." That was as far as she got. A federal agent stepped forward, badge opening like a verdict. "Ma'am, this meeting is now a federal evidentiary discussion. You will refrain from making further accusations." Gasps spread across the room like wildfire. The enforcer in crimson froze mid-breath. Her boyfriend sat at the side table, eyes darting, chain now confiscated, wrists trembling in visible regret or fear. Hard to tell the difference when consequences finally land. My brother stood, not stepping forward, just rising in a calm, precise motion that redirected everyone's attention without force. Under federal animal welfare and unlawful confinement statutes, he began, voice steady, this board is under investigation for unauthorized installation of containment structures designed for confinement of minors. Her mouth fell open. Minors? That's absurd. Your emails prove intent, another agent answered. And your boyfriend constructed confinement areas without legal approval. Residents shifted uncomfortably. A mother stood, voice shaking. Is it true? Did you really build cages? Veronica Hale tried speaking, but no words formed. Her polished authority evaporated inside her own silence. The officer of rules didn't have rules anymore. Only accusations circling back like consequences finally remembered. Daniel stood up next. Shoulders straight, voice clearer than I'd ever heard it. She told us to prepare containment review. She approved the locks. She approved everything he planned. Every head turned toward him. He didn't flinch this time. Fear had turned into confession. Veronica Hale finally regained words, but every syllable fell like shattered glass. You were supposed to support board procedures. No, Daniel said firmly. You were supposed to protect families, and you didn't. Her boyfriend tried standing like he still had control left. You don't understand. Everything was blown out of proportion. My brother interrupted quietly, yet his voice cut like steel. Sir, every cage size you installed matched child dimensions. Silence. Thick, heavy, accusing. A gasp rippled through the hall, followed by a woman whispering, "That could have been my granddaughter." Suddenly, every parent understood. This wasn't HOA nonsense anymore. This was criminal. Another agent placed a document on the board table. Effective immediately, the board is suspended pending federal investigation. All authority transfers to temporary oversight. Veronica Hale looked genuinely lost, finally recognizing she wasn't a queen, just a named defendant. This is a misunderstanding. Please, you have to let me explain. My brother spoke again, tone calm but immovable. The time to explain ended when you approved a padlock designed for holding frightened animals. Residents murmured, anger mixing with shock. A father stood, voice commanding. We trusted you with our community, and you built cages instead? Lily tugged my sleeve, whispering quietly, Daddy, why is everyone mad? I knelt and kissed her forehead gently, whispering, because sometimes grown-ups forget what kindness looks like. Federal personnel escorted Veronica Hale and her boyfriend toward the exit, hands on their arms. Not arrested yet, but detained for questioning. The clipboard queen looked smaller than I'd ever imagined. Power deflated by consequence. Daniel approached Lily slowly. I'm sorry, he managed, voice breaking slightly, for everything I didn't say sooner. I nodded once. You said it when it mattered. And inside that crowded community center, with neighbors stunned, agents documenting, and power shifting into truth, Veronica Hale finally realized the one rule she never understood. When you treat a child like an animal, someday real handlers come for you. When the meeting finally dissolved into stunned whispers and scattered footsteps, I walked Lily out into the cool night air. The community center lights cast long shadows across the pavement, and for the first time in weeks, none of those shadows felt like they were watching us. Neighbors stepped aside, not out of avoidance this time, but out of awareness. Some nodded faintly, unsure how to apologize for silence, but trying anyway. My brother stayed a few paces behind, speaking with agents, giving final directives I didn't need to hear to understand. The clipboard queen had been escorted to another room hours earlier. No heels clicking, no authority left. Just paperwork. And confrontation with real law instead of rules she invented. I strapped Lily into her car seat, listening to her soft breathing, calm and steady. Exactly how childhood should feel. When I looked up, Daniel approached hesitantly, hands shoved deep in his pockets again, like the conflict inside him hadn't fully settled. They're releasing me from the maintenance contract, he murmured. I nodded slowly. Because you told the truth. They said I should have spoken sooner. You spoke before it was too late, I answered. That matters more. His eyes glistened just slightly, not with weakness, but with relief. I was afraid of her. I know, I told him gently. Everyone was. Near the curb, neighbors gathered in small groups, parents mostly, speaking quietly, realizing how close danger had lived inside this community. A mother stepped forward, voice trembling. "If you ever need anything for her, you tell us." I thanked her, not because I needed anything, but because the community finally understood exactly who needed protecting. The tyrant in heels hadn't protected anyone. She'd endangered every child here. And now, every parent in Oak Summit Meadow knew it. When we got home, Lily reached for her chalk and asked if she could draw her butterflies tomorrow. I smiled, brushed her hair from her face, and whispered, "Yes, tomorrow will be better." After I tucked her in, I walked through the house once more, not checking locks, not scanning windows, just walking, letting silence become safety again. The kind of quiet a father fights for, even when no one sees the battle. My brother joined me on the back patio, both of us staring toward the clubhouse where lights still flickered with investigative presence. "We'll pursue charges," he said quietly. "Some things may take time, but that doesn't undo accountability." "What happens to her now?" I asked. "The board chair will answer questions," he replied. "The boyfriend will answer more." He paused, letting the weight settle. "But she doesn't get authority back. Not here, not anywhere." We stood there for a long moment, him protecting, me processing, both of us holding different sides of the same truth. Finally, he clapped my shoulder once. "You did the right thing. You stayed steady." "No," I whispered, eyes moving toward Lily's window. "I just stayed her dad." His phone buzzed. He glanced down, then looked at me with a soft half smile. "They want a formal statement tomorrow, but not tonight. Tonight's about her being safe." I nodded, grateful for timing that let childhood sleep uninterrupted. Later, I returned to Lily's room, watched her dream under soft nightlight glow, and felt my chest loosen in a way it hadn't since the first notice appeared on our door. The officer of rules tried to turn safety into threat, tried to turn childhood into containment. But tonight proved something she never understood. You cannot cage innocence and expect parents to watch. Before turning off the hall light, I whispered quietly, "If you've ever gone through something like this, tell me where you're watching from. And if you know a parent who needs this story, share it forward." Because this wasn't just about one HOA or one neighborhood drama. It was about every parent who's ever felt powerless in front of someone misusing authority, someone pretending to enforce safety while quietly threatening it. Outside, I heard vehicles leaving the community, no sirens, just quiet presence stepping away. My brother texted once more, "We'll follow up. Sleep tonight. She's safe." I looked to the sky, breathed deeply, and said what every parent eventually learns the hard way. Protecting your child is the only rule that matters. If you want more HOA conflict stories, hit the subscribe button right now. Like this video, and also tell me in the comments from where are you watching from. And if someone decides to break that rule, they eventually learn what a real kennel feels like.